Just a few days ago, Paul was standing by his family as they mourned the passing of his cherished grandpa. The old man had been a pillar of wisdom, full of stories that felt like echoes from another time, said the old man on several occasions. When Paul was younger, they had been inseparable. During the summers, they had spent their time together traveling the wide countryside, listening to stories of history, and eating meals in the exact home that now remained ominously abandoned following the demise of Paul's grandpa. Paul had no intention of moving in, despite the fact that the property had emotional importance. His whole life was spent in the city, where he spent the most of his time working. On the other hand, the idea of allowing the home to deteriorate into a state of abandonment did not sit well with him. As an alternative, he made the decision to refurbish it, bringing back its allure and maybe renting it out. It was the very minimum that he could do to pay tribute to the memory of his grandpa. He started working on the worn-out tiles that lined the floor of the living room using a demolition equipment that he had purchased. They were old, cracked, and dull, and they whispered stories about the fact that time had passed. However, as the machine roared and rumbled across the room, it abruptly came to a sharp halt, and Paul was on the verge of ripping it out of his grasp. The engine was shut off by him with a frown. What may perhaps lie beneath? An unremembered pipe, a cornerstone of the structure. Paul, fascinated by the situation, knelt down and swept away the rubbish. While he was cleaning up the broken tiles, his fingertips came into contact with something that was icy and metallic. It caused his heart to skip a beat. The surface that lay underneath the tiles was not concrete. Rather, it was a thick metal plate that had been implanted into the earth and had corroded. A handle is located in the middle. A hatch that is concealed. He had a racing mind. I don't understand why there is a hidden entrance under the floor. Paul pried the handle with a wave of adrenaline coming from his body. After years of being neglected, the metal grumbled in protest, showing its stiffness. He moved the hefty slab, which revealed a dark and narrow stairway that led down into the soil. Dust billowed into the air as he lifted the slab to his ears. His heartbeat was pounding. There was just a brief moment of hesitation on his part before he grabbed the flashlight from his phone and down the stairs. The atmosphere became chilly, and it was dense with the aroma of time and secrets. Just as his boots made contact with the ground, the light flashed across something that caused him to take a deep inhale in anticipation. In the basement area, there were shelves that were lined with shelves, and each shelf had wooden boxes that were wax-sealed and inscribed with weird symbols. On a big wooden table, there was a clean stack of paperwork, old maps, and volumes encased in leather. Additionally, there were bundles of documents there. However, the thing that genuinely drew his attention was a little box made of iron that was situated on a pedestal in the middle of the room. Paul knelt down in front of the chest, trembling with excitement and expectation. It was easy to unlock the lock, despite the fact that it had corroded. He was unable to catch his breath when he opened the lid. There was a collection of treasures within, including coins that dated back centuries, a revolver with complex engravings, and at the very top, a paper that had yellowed and included his grandfather's handwriting. It is possible that history has found you if you have discovered this. There are several things that you really must be aware of. As Paul unfolded the letter, his hands began to shake. The words of his grandpa made it possible for him to uncover a truth that had been hidden for many generations. He was about to discover a piece of history that would completely alter everything, but he had no idea that it was about to happen. During the process of unfolding the parchment, Paul's hands shook, and the delicate paper shook and crackled as he touched it. Even though his grandfather's handwriting had become less legible over the years, it was still easily recognizable. He read the sentences out loud, and the faint light threw frightening shadows on the stone walls. His pulse was pounding as he did so. If you are reading this, Paul, then chance has brought you to this place, just as it did for me in the past. Your discovery is more than just a remnant from the past. It is a key to a history that has been buried for a very long time. Be warned, however, because if you learn the truth, it may cause you to reevaluate all you think about our family and the world." His chest tightened up. The weight of those words, which were permeated with a sense of mystery, weighed down on him. After taking another look around the room, he realized that this was not your typical storage area. Everything that his granddad had been keeping a secret. To what end? Paul, whose interest was piqued, switched his attention back to the iron box. When he looked behind the parchment, he discovered a collection of old images. When he put one of them up to the light, it revealed a large gathering of guys standing in front of the exact home that he was in, but there was something strange about the scene. Even though their attitudes were solemn and their eyes were filled with secrets, their attire gave the impression that they were from the early 1900s. His granddad was the one who was there, but a few years younger. The photograph was turned over by Paul. Hidden on the reverse was a message written in his grandfather's handwriting, which read as follows: "The Brotherhood of Aferan is a grouping. What must not be discovered must be protected." Paul felt a shiver going down his spine. Could it be the Brotherhood of Aferan? It was something he had never heard of before. Who were these individuals? The question is, what exactly were they guarding? There was a return of his focus to the chest. Something that was wrapped in fabric was found just underneath the images. A dagger was shown to him as he carefully unwrapped it, and it was so shocking that it caused him to lose his breath. It's not just any dagger, however, in spite of the passage of time, its blade shone brightly, and it was decorated with weird symbols which ran down its length. The handle was crafted from an unidentified metal, and it had a chilly feel to it. It was also encrusted with a single brilliant blue gemstone that gave off a faint shine when illuminated by the dim light. Paul took a momentary gulp. In no way was this a simple family heirloom. It was old-fashioned, strong, in it, a loud and piercing sound, which was a creaking floorboard, suddenly reverberated throughout the home above. Paul became completely numb. The home was occupied by a person. His heartbeat was pounding loudly in his ears. Anyone else who was aware of this location? By opening the vault, had he inadvertently done something that caused anything to happen? After carefully rewrapping the blade, he slid the letter into his pocket and turned off his flashlight. He carried out these actions with great care. In a hurry, he needed to return to the upper floor. As he made his way up the stairs in the safest manner possible, he eventually arrived at the hatch and flattened himself against the wall as he listened. Not one more squeak, the sound of footsteps. The opening in the floor where he had been working was interrupted by a shadow that moved over it. Paul's mouth became completely dry. Anyone that was up there was seeking for something, regardless of what it was. In addition, he got a nagging sensation that they were not in this location by chance. When Paul was forced against the stone wall, he held his breath and pressed his body into it. Whoever was inside the home was not just exploring. As shown by the slow and deliberate footsteps that were heard above, there was a search going on. He felt a thrill go through him caused by a metallic click. A firearm? His fingers curled more tightly around the blade that was coiled. Despite the fact that he had no clue who these individuals were or what they wanted, he knew that if they were armed, this was not a case of someone walking into a property that had been abandoned. Paul must have a strategy. Taking a quick look around the vault, he realized that there had to be another exit. Surely there was a way out of this location if his grandpa had constructed it with the intention of concealing information. The stack of old boxes that was leaning against the wall in the furthest part of the room caught his attention as he quickly looked there. By moving with caution, he was able to pry one away. Behind it was a slender path that had been dug into the rock, and it then proceeded into total darkness. There is a way out. Footsteps were heard more clearly from above. There was no delay on Paul's part. He moved stealthily across the corridor, taking great care not to make any noise. But he continued to go ahead despite the fact that the walls were moist and the air within was dense with dust. An ancient tunnel that looked to be heading away from the home was illuminated by the lighting on his phone, which penetrated the darkness with only a minor degree of success. His grandpa had made preparations for this event, but why is that? Even as he proceeded farther into the tunnel, he was surprised by a startling vibration that occurred in his pocket. It was his phone. It is a message. Unknown number, it is imperative that you go right now. You are not the only one. Paul's blood became ice cold. Who was keeping an eye on him? How were they able to anticipate what he was going to do? Just as he was about to respond, he heard a voice coming from the home above him. We are aware that you are present. You need just come out, and everything will be simple. Paul's heart stopped beating. It was not possible to pause for a moment. His breathing was labored as he rushed down the tunnel, pushing ahead as quickly as he could find the strength to do so. He was able to determine that they had entered the vault by the faint sound of boots thudding on wood that he heard behind him. They were on their way, but who exactly were they? To what end were they pursuing it? Paul discovered that he had emerged from the tunnel and found himself in the center of the woodland that was located behind the home. Strange shadows were produced on the ground as a result of the moonlight that was able to penetrate the trees. Leaning against the closest tree, his thoughts was racing as he gulped for oxygen and leaned on it. He was in need of assistance. The responses on top of that, there was only one person who might possibly own them, and that was Henry Caldwell, the oldest friend of his grandpa. Henry's relationship with his grandpa had always been quite close, similar to that of a brother. From the time Paul was a little boy, he had always considered him to be nothing more than an eccentric old historian who had a passion for ancient books and unusual relics. Looking back, however, it was clear that everything was beginning to come together. There was something that his grandpa and Henry had been keeping hidden. The phone was taken out of Paul's pocket, and he phoned Henry's number. The one ring, it is 2, it's 3 after that, a voice that was quick but not surprised. It was Paul. I prepared myself to take your call. Paul felt a pain in his gut. Henry, what the hell is going on? There was a lengthy pause. Next, Henry spoke, his tone being calm yet authoritative. Now is the time for you to come to me. As for Paul, whatever you do, don't let them catch you.